Ward 7, and just a resident.
Sylvia Knight, Ward 7. Eric Hardy, Ward 4.
Eric Cortman, Ward 4, Steering Committee.
Matt Herbert, Ward 7, Steering Committee.
Diana, yeah, Ward 7. Gail Morrow, Ward 7.
Bob Cooper, Ward 4.
Dave Hartman, Ward 4.
Jim Holloway, Ward 4, Steering Committee.
Tom Flurry, Ward 7. Bob Cooper, Ward 4.
Chris Trombley, Ward 7, Steering Committee.
Jeff O'Donnell, Ward 4.
Hi, Jenna O'Donnell, Ward 4, Steering Committee.
Peter Ireland, Ward 4.
Anna Garpino, CETA.
And I'm Courtney Lambden, I'm a reporter with 7 Days.
Jeff Clark, Ward 4, Steering Committee.
Excellent. Did we miss anybody? Oh, Jim, did you get it? Did we get Jim?
Oh, I don't know.
With your mouth full, please.
Sorry.
I'm Sydney, I'm with CETA.
Yay. All right, I think we got everybody. And we do ask, this is the announcement time. If you have something going on in the neighborhood you want to announce, we just ask that you keep it to 30 seconds. Do we time keep this? Ish? Okay. 30 seconds. Anybody have an announcement?
Hold up this sign if you're taking too much.
No announcements? No? Okay, great. Well, then we can get started right away with Miss Gail Varot, who is presenting from the Heineberg Senior Center. You can either stand and use a microphone, or you can sit and use one of our fancy stands. Whatever you prefer.
Well, maybe I'll start. Is this on? Hello, can you hear me? Not really, no.
Turn that on for now.
Thank you very much. Thank you for letting me sit, because you know, between my glasses and the paper and the mic. I'm Gail Morrow. I was the former director at the Heineberg Senior Community Center on Heineberg Road. And for those who may not be familiar with that facility, it has been a center for seniors opportunities since 1971. So we've been in the community a very long time. And I have to say that through the years, of course, as any private nonprofit goes, it has ebbs and flows of financial security or unsecurity. And we found ourselves last year in a period that was not financially sustainable. The senior center has always been funded privately, so we never had state money, we never had city money. We, until recently, about 5 years ago, we were getting United Way funding. Last year, United Way dropped the funding of the Heineberg Senior Center. So that kind of left us in a dilemma. What do we do? Beth Hammond is the executive director, and I am the board chair there now. After retiring as the director, I took a little break, and then I came back as a board member. So we immediately called our city councilors, and I have to say, all of the city councilors from out here were very receptive, and not only that, said, what can we do? We really need to figure this out. The center is very active. It sees a lot of participants. There's a lot of good programs for people age 50 and over. So I see a lot of people in this room who could access programs at the center. You know, I always said my job there when I was a director was to create the center that I wanted to go to, and here I am. I am taking activities there now as a participant. So we got together and we presented a proposal to City Council, which was passed unanimously, to study the situation at Heineberg and try to figure out a way to make this sustainable. I think what we didn't want to close the doors and say, well, it's been a good run, but it's a very active and vibrant center, and we really wanted to keep it going. So the city council put together a committee, and I want to read to you just the people that were on it, because we had really people who were invested in senior opportunities in our city. And they really put a lot of hard work and time into making this committee work and figure out a way that we can continue on in a sustainable fashion. So here's where I'm grateful that I'm sitting with a table. The members of the committee were Jane Odell, Dave Hartnett, Jesse Bridges from United Way, Sarah Carter from Burlington Parks and Recreation, Kirby Dunn from Home Share Vermont, Beth Hammond, who is the Executive Director of the Heidelberg Community Senior Center, myself, Gary Rogers from Burlington Parks and Recreation, Kelly Stoddard from AARP, and Cameron Siegel from Living Well. So the committee met all year and came forth to City Council this past spring with the following recommendations. There's two. The recommendation regarding the long-term financial sustainability of the Heidelberg Community Center, they found that it's currently not on a financially sustainable footing. We lost grant income and we were dipping into savings just to provide operations money. And as you all know, that's not sustainable. So the recommendation to City Council was that the Senior Center enter into a partnership with the Burlington Parks and Recreation, creating 2 campuses for senior programming in the city of Burlington, one at the Champlain Senior Center, which is located at the core building, which is the old St. Joseph's School on Allen Street in Burlington. It's a great facility. And the Heidelberg Senior Center. The key elements of this partnership, which would need to be further defined and specified, which is the process that we're going through right now, would be an understanding that the department, the city department, would manage the operations of the Heidelberg Community Senior Center. The Heidelberg Senior Center owns its own 501c3, which means it's a non-profit status. That 501c3 would maintain ownership of the building at 14 Heidelberg Road. So there would still be a board that represented that 501c3 and would be responsible for building needs, large building repairs. The Parks and Recreation and Waterfront Department would be responsible for the everyday operations, including everyday cleaning of the toilets and all that fun stuff. So that was the first recommendation that this committee gave to City Council. The second recommendation, which is something that I'm really excited about because I've really felt the need for this for a long time, would be to create a Burlington Council on Aging. And the goal and mission of that would be to raise awareness of the needs of the diverse group and bring greater focus to the coordination and services of programs for older residents in the city of Burlington. So the process right now, how am I doing for time?
You are.
I'm good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Another 15 minutes.
So the process now is we have money allocated from our city budget to maintain what we're doing right now until we can work out the details in the following months with Burlington Parks, Recreation, and Waterfront so that we have a really good transition, that we merge. But the key thing is, I think, that people that attend the center and come to programs every day would not see any difference in their programming or in their meals or in their walking in and seeing the same staff that's there now. So that's our goal. I think it creates long-term sustainability for this wonderful asset in the new north end of Burlington. So, any questions? Yes.
Can you,
Oh, wait, if you
Oh,
would,
good.
wait for a mic
Okay.
so that everyone can hear you. Yes.
okay, we're on. My question is, what is the relationship between Heidelberg senior housing and the community center?
Thank you for asking that question, because I think a lot of people do not understand that Heineberg Housing is a Cathedral Square property. It is completely separate from the Heineberg Community Senior Center. The Heineberg Community Senior Center is a private, nonprofit, open to anyone in our area, 50 years of age and older. It has no connection to Heineberg Housing, other than the fact that we're really good neighbors. And we obviously see a lot of folks from the housing, but we're completely separate.
Thank
So
you.
thank you for clarifying that, because I know that a lot of people don't get that we're separate, because of the name, Heineberg. Any other questions about the future of the center, or how that is going to be managed in the future? Great, yes.
What will the source of funds be?
The source,
I know you're loud, but the camera needs it.
I love it. What will the source of funds be?
right now, the source of funds is through our city budget and will continue to do so. It will be funded by the city. However, I do want to say that obviously the budget for the year is greater than the $58,000 that the city does put in for the operations at Heineberg. So it will be up to the Parks, Recreation, and Waterfront Department to raise money to fund the part that's not being funded by city taxes. But there's rental opportunities at that building. There's opportunities for raising revenue aside from city money, which they plan on doing.
So for the programming, will that start showing up in the Parks and Rec program guide?
Yes, it will.
Cool, we have plenty of time. Want to tell me a little bit about some of the programming?
Oh, sure, I'd love to. Off the top of my head, the number one program that people our age want is health and wellness programs. So to that end, we have, at the center, we have Tai Chi, yoga, bone builders, jazzercise for seniors. We have health clinics, we have foot clinics, we have nutrition classes. Help me if I'm not remembering anything, Diane, because Diane comes to the center frequently. But that's, health and wellness is one area where we have a lot of good opportunities for seniors. Another one that is always at the top of people's requests are trips and recreational activities, gatherings. And I always throw this statistic out because I think it was mind-blowing for me when I heard this. Social isolation, loneliness, can have the same impact on your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. Wow. That's what I said when I first heard that. How can we provide opportunities that people can participate in, build a community, and feel that they are engaged in our community? And also giving back to the community, because we also do public service opportunities. So we're trying to look at it holistically. How can we keep older adults in our city active, vital, and feeling engaged in our community? Being part of something helps to combat that social isolation.
I was going to ask my own question. Oh, go ahead, Dave. Sorry, you first.
Yeah, maybe it would also, I think it would be helpful, I think an important role that this committee played is where we talked about, reaching populations that we haven't reached, new Americans and seniors and their homes, and bringing them in and learning their culture and letting them learn our culture. Because we think there's a big void there, right here in the senior center. So maybe you could touch on that. We talked about that, the committee is very focused on it.
Exactly. Because, there's a lot of older adults, and there's a lot of older adults out here in our 2 wards. And because they don't happen to visit a center, either the Heineberg or Champlain, doesn't mean that they don't have needs or wants, or they don't want to be engaged in the community, because they do. you know, we know that one problem, even out here, is transportation. When we generate a council on aging, we can really take a look at these aspects that really prohibit people from getting out and being active in our community, choosing to do the programs that they want. There's a lot of seniors that don't happen to go to a center. And I think we want to make sure that we're looking at the whole community holistically and not just the people who happen to go to that center. And I think merging with the Burlington Parks Recreation Waterfront is going to really help us to do that. Dave, did I touch on that?
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. I think it was vital. I think it was a key role that we talked about.
Yeah.
And I think the other funding, to answer Peter a little bit too, as far as, funding and stuff, certainly, we've talked about, rentals and the Heidelberg Center and stuff like that, but one of the reasons, it's always about the money, when it comes down to it. And all these groups were fighting for the same funds, the same grants, the same everything, right? And so it was competing against each other, and what we were doing, we were really ending up hurting all of us, right? And so this way, by combining and coming into the city, well, people will be able to write grants for us and raise money for us and as a whole. And we should be looking at this as a citywide issue. It shouldn't be a north end, south end, right? We should be looking at bringing it all together. And so this group, and not because I was part of it, but this group did a lot of great work. And I think we touched on a lot of areas that we hadn't talked about. And I think the other thing that we did, which was very important to me, and I talked about it early on, was we brought the people that use the center in early. We kept them updated every step of the way. And we said to them, anytime you hear something that you don't like or you don't think it's going to work, we want to hear from you. And so it was very open. They had a lot to say with it. It wasn't like this committee got together and said, okay, this is what it's going to be like, here it is. We were getting input along the way by members that actively use the club now. And I think that was very important and very helpful.
And I think the culture at the senior center here on Heidelberg Road is one of activism and volunteerism. And we have a lot of folks that come in and out all day long and really run most of the programs, run the meal program, run programming, run exercise programs. So it really is, it's a good community. And I wanted to say something else that was really important, and I forgot.
You'll think of it.
Yeah, an hour from now.
I am curious, are there any programs or ways that younger kids, like kids or middle schoolers or teenagers are encouraged to come volunteer and participate? Because I know that's...
We see elementary school kids. They have a great program with a second grade class at C.P. Smith. They are called Grand Buddies or Grand Friends, or is that right, Diane? It's pen pals, but it's a great program. It goes all school year long. We have the culinary program from Burlington High School, making things for all of our big meal events. And I think the key is to keep programming, keep doing that more and more and more, because there's nothing better than multi-gen programs.
Agreed.
Gail, and how would a private citizen make a donation towards Heidelberg?
There's a website, Heidelberg Senior Center, Heidelberg Community Senior Center. Anyway, there is a donation link on our webpage.
Can we get that?
Or
info?
you can walk in.
Thank you.
Everything you've said so far is talking about serving the dear old seniors. Why don't we say that 20% of the budget will be made up by the seniors, one way or another? Let them work. That's the one thing that will drag me out, is a real need for me somewhere.
So am I understanding that you would like to do some fundraising to benefit the senior center?
No.
No.
Absolutely not. I want the seniors to work. I don't want to be considered a bunch of old folks that we feel we have to take care of and entertain, which is what you've defined.
No, I completely agree, because I think that any age, people of any age, have a contribution to this community. And that's always been the focus. In fact, that senior center would not run without people coming in and volunteering at any age. I completely agree. We have too much to give and to give back to our community to ever be thinking that you needed anyone to come in and take care. That's just not the focus of the center.
The website is heinebergcsc.org, and there is a page that you can volunteer or donate. There's a
There you go.
form.
Thank you, Eric.
You're welcome.
Just to address Peter's issue, and Gail touched on it a little bit, but, you know, we talked about, so there are still going to be opportunities. We are going to be self-fundraising and to add to the budget ourselves. Like, we'll do our annual appeal letter. We're going to hopefully have events at the Elks Club, right, and bring the community involved, right? We're going to partner hopefully with Birchwood and Star Farm to help raise some money. I'll talk to the new owners at both those places. They want to get involved. So you're absolutely right, Peter, because to me, it's not only about them kicking in 20% and doing a share. To me, that's a step in senior living, a quality of life. Like, they're still producing, they're giving, and they have a skin in the game, and it's their center, and they feel good about that, and they're proud about that. And so it's an important role that they play in that they just don't sit back and a magic wand appears and everything. They want to be part of it. They want to have a say. We heard that loud and clear. And so they still want to do the annual appeal. They still want to do the garage sales. They still want to do the Elvis's night at the Elks Club, right? It's great that they want to participate and try to help raise funds. So there is a percentage. I'm not going to say it's 20%.
No, that was exaggerated.
Right, exactly. But I want you to know that there will be fundraising drives going on within the community itself.
And the 501c3 remains active and will be responsible for building repairs. So there will be a need to raise money for that as well.
So I have two quick questions. And I'm not sure if this has just been decided yet, but is Beth going to be able to stay on as director? Because she's been fabulous.
She is a fabulous director. This is the process. Burlington Parks Recreation has to advertise that position legally, for legal reasons. They're very interested in keeping Beth and Terry Price as well. So, our hope is that they have to apply for the job, they get accepted for the job, and they want to stay on. And I think all of those three things will happen.
Okay, we have 2.5 minutes left. Any last questions, input, suggestions?
Can you tell a little bit about the senior, the tickets for the senior meals in the community?
Sure, I can. And I want to say that program is a part of Age Well. So it is, in fact, I just used one today. I went down to Rosie's in Middlebury. So you go into either the center or Age Well office in Essex. You fill out a form, and then you can buy a restaurant ticket if you're over the age of 60. You can buy a ticket for $5, which will enable you to go to the restaurants on their list for a meal. And I went to Rosie's, had a delightful lunch, and I used my $5 ticket. But that is a program from Age Well, but we also coordinate with Age Well a lot at the center. And you can go in and get the application, and you can actually buy tickets at the senior center. I think it's Thursdays, one Thursday a month, but call the center for more information. 863-3982.
All right, let's all.
I do want to say thank you very much, Erica, for giving us the opportunity to let you know, because this is a center that belongs to all of us in this community. And I appreciate the opportunity to let you know what's happening. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Gail. Next up, we have Rachel Kennedy from Green Mountain Transit. else is doing this part, because I would probably break something.
And now when we switch over, should I stand over here?
And while we're setting this up, I'm sure Erica mentioned this at the beginning, but I do want to point out at the bottom of the agenda is a very exciting new addition. But if anyone's interested in getting time on the agendas, as a newer steering committee, I have no idea how that happened. So we put the link at the very bottom. It's a very easy Google Doc. So if you ever want time on the agenda, this is a really easy way to do it. Just wanted to point that out for getting our Coors Light commercials.
I'll just walk back and forth, that's no problem. Okay, can you all hear me? Yes. Okay, so my name is Rachel Kennedy, and I'm here from Green Mountain Transit. I'm the senior transit planner. I'm here to talk about, I think you all are aware that on June 17th, we changed the bus system. On the agenda, it says route changes. That's a bit of a misnomer. We didn't actually change the routes very much, and in the New North End, we didn't make any routing changes at all. So the big changes are scheduling, and the big changes that you'll see are we changed from route numbers to route colors. So those are kind of the big changes that I'm going to discuss tonight. So we've got this big beast of a project that started in September of 2017 called Next Generation Transit. It's just a name. What it is basically GMT has been through a lot of changes in the past 10, 15 years, and there hasn't really been that take a step back, do a comprehensive service analysis since then. So we wanted to take this opportunity to get the best bang for your buck, for your tax dollars, basically. How can we serve, always with transit, there's the balance. How can we serve the most people, and how can we serve people who need it the most? So those are kind of the things that we consider when we're looking at making these changes. So changes to nearly every route to improve service, attract new riders, and better balance services with demand. So we've been through quite a few public feedback sessions. You start out really big, what are the big ideas that we want to see, and then you take those out and you get public feedback. You come out with a more specific plan, you get more feedback, until eventually you have the implementation that happened on June 17th. We did do a lot of research into what future improvements might you want. And so at the beginning was scenarios. Scenario 1, neutral funding. Scenario 2, 5% increase. Scenario 3, 10% increase.
Slow down just a little.
Okay, sorry. So what we can do, with the funding constraints that we're currently experiencing, we are doing cost-neutral service improvement. So this is an entirely cost-neutral service redesign. But we didn't want to lose all that research we had done into what are the big idea projects that might happen in the future. So we've come up with these phases. Phase 1 is what happened on June 17th in the urban, and we're working on the rural system changes now. Phase 2 is service enhancements, additional service on existing routes. So more service, more of the time. And then phase 3 is geographic expansion. So based on local interest and feasibility studies, in the future, where might we add commuter routes, or where might we add fixed route service in the future? So this is our new system map. The routing should look pretty similar, but you see the big changes that we've switched from route numbers to route colors. And the reason we did that is we had a pretty confusing service. Route 36 traveled on Route 116. So we haven't changed commuters yet, but similarly, take bus 1 on Route 2 out to Williston. Now we're just going to say take the red line to Williston. So what might that look like? So if you are standing, this is an example of the red line. It's going to say red line to Williston via DTC. The DTC is now at the center of all of those routes. So that's the concept across the line. So the old Route 7 and the old Route 1 is now the red line, Northgate to Williston via DTC. We've got the old Route 2 and Route 6, blue line, Essex to Shelburne via DTC. Winooski and Pine Street. We've combined the old South Burlington circulator with the College Street shuttle. Now that one was a bit tricky because the College Street shuttle used to be free. So we introduced a fare-free zone, same routing, no fare, but it's gonna run every half an hour instead of every 15 minutes. So that's now the purple line. And the benefit there is that you can get to South Burlington without having to make a transfer. You can have all-day service to the airport from the waterfront without making a transfer. We've kept the orange line, which is the old Williston Essex, pretty much the same. We had originally proposed eliminating Essex, but last year, about a year and a half ago, we started working with the Essex School District to provide, they would reimburse us for student rides. We saw ridership jump to 60%. There was a lot of community outreach to keep that service, and so we've kept it at slightly reduced hours. Students will still be able to ride it to high school during those hours, and we're providing still those peak commuter hours for people who need to take it to service to work. The one route we did end up eliminating was Williston 1B, which had an average of 4 riders a day. And while we really understand that for those 4 riders, this was a very necessary service, that's the balance we're talking about, serving the most riders and the riders who needed the most. So in order to have the most efficient service, we ended up eliminating Williston 1B. So just a brief summary. It's going to be 20-minute headways on the main trunk routes. And again, the main trunk routes are the red and blue lines, that big X, the main ways of getting in and out of downtown Burlington. It'll be half an hour service on the green line, which is Winooski Pine Street, the orange line, and then the silver has limited service. We've extended later service on almost all routes. The last trip will leave the DTC at 11 o'clock, so if you want to go out to dinner in Burlington, you'll be confident that wherever you're trying to get outside of downtown Burlington, that last trip is going to leave at 11 o'clock. We'll have dedicated Sunday service. And we used to have kind of a funky route that just kind of did what a lot of other routes did, but didn't really make sense. So now we're going to have dedicated service on all of these main routes on Sunday. This says adjusted commuter times. We actually decided to hold off on that, and I'm going to do a little prompt. If any of you ride our commuter service or are interested in doing it, please do come to our website. We're doing commuter surveys. If we get enough responses, and if it seems like we can capture more ridership without disadvantaging current riders, we will be trying to adjust commuter schedules in September with the implementation of the rural change service. Okay. So again, just an example of what that might look like. Red line to Williston via DTC. So this is an example of how we've updated our bus map and guides. This is the old Route 7 on the left, the old Route 1 on the right, and you can see here, that's now the red line. We decided to add a lot more context, so it's easier to kind of, where am I on this bus schedule when the right trucks come? Now, if you're new to transit, one thing I do want to point out is that these are just time points. We can't fit every stop in a bus map and guide. So what we do is we provide time points at the major stops, and then if you're looking at a bus map and guide and say, I'm somewhere in here, I'm not quite sure when the bus is going to come. What you're going to want to do is look at this time point and look at this time point, and you're just going to have to give yourself that 10-minute window of when you think it's going to come in between those stops. So this is what our bus mapping guide looks like. We've already gotten a lot of feedback, and luckily we're going to have an opportunity to make a lot of updates based on that feedback in September. So again, the biggest change, and it's kind of just going to have to be a little bit of a switch of how you think about our transit system, is that you can see the downtown transit center is now the center of the route rather than the terminus of a route. So when you're looking at the map, in order to orient yourself, am I in, where am I, and where do I want to go? So I'm at the DTC, okay, and I want to go to Northgate. Nope, okay. I'm at the DTC, and I want to go to Northgate. So this is what you're going to be looking at. So that's kind of how you orient yourself in the new system. So you might notice this funky little bit in the middle here. Since we've moved to consistent headway, if I'm at the DTC, I know that this bus is going to leave for Northgate 10 after the hour, 30 after the hour, and 50 after the hour. So anytime, all day pretty much until 6 o'clock, this is when the bus is going to come, every 20 minutes. So you kind of have to fill in the blank there, but you know, it's 12 o'clock, when's the bus going to come? The next bus is going to come at 12:15. So that's what that means. Some other really exciting things, and again, another big push of this is making the system easy to use. And I know it seems a little bit counterintuitive to throw all these changes, but we really believe that the color line, once that culture shift happens, once we kind of get some time on our end to come up with the best way of presenting this information, it's really going to make a lot more sense than it does currently. One exciting kind of technological fix that we have now is real-time location app. There's an app called Transit, and if you all want to download it, TRANSIT, Transit. And with that, it does trip planning, so it knows where you are, you put in where you want to go, it's going to give you a couple different options how to get there. You can actually see where the bus is on the route, which is really helpful. If I'm at a stop, it's pretty stressful. Did I miss the bus? Am I going to have to wait 20 minutes? Now I'll be able to see when the next bus is coming. The other thing, so this on the right is the Transit app. So you can see search line or destination, gives you a couple different options. We also have mobile ticketing. Right now they're not in the same app, but shortly they will be in the same app. So you'll be able to click that button right up top, buy whichever pass you would like. All current passes are going to be viable in the system. And then you just show it to your bus driver, you tap it, it's active, you have an hour to get to where you're going. It works with any fare type, and it also offers up a lot of new options for promoting transit. Are you having a conference in downtown Burlington and you want to give vouchers to all your conference attendees to ride transit to some event? You'll be able to buy passes for them and push it out using text or using a link so that you can give passes to people using this program now. We are not taking any cash fares away. We are not removing any kind of ways that people currently pay for tickets. We are only adding options. This also means that if you're a person who doesn't carry cash, you don't have to remember to get those quarters or forfeit a $5, $10, $20 bill. You just show up to the bus, okay, buy your ticket, show it to the driver, and you're good to go. Along with this system change, the board voted to increase fares. The last GMT cash fare increase was in 2005. We increased, now it costs $1.50 a ride instead of $1.25. So discounted rate would be 75 cents versus it used to be 60 cents. We reduced the monthly unlimited pass from 50 to 40. And we work very closely with social service organizations to make sure that they're getting those $40 monthly passes to people who need them most, 20 with the reduced rate. This is going to generate a projected $160,000 in additional fare revenue. It might seem counterintuitive again at first that the one pass fare is going up and the monthly pass fare is going down, but operationally, monthly pass fare is less wear and tear on the fare box, less load time, so we do want to incentivize people and help people purchase those 1 month passes. It's better for the user, it's better for us as an agency. So if you have any feedback, if you have tried out our new system or you're interested in trying out our new system, we really, really want to hear from you. We've got this great window where you've made a lot of change. There's always going to be some good choices and probably some bad choices that you'll cover. So we're really interested in hearing from you. You can email us at feedback@ridegmt.com. If you go to this ridegmt.com/nextgen website, we've actually got our rural changes up there now. All the urban changes since they've been implemented, if you click on any of the schedules, there's links to the bus mapping guide, there's descriptions of the changes. And again, since I'm the data analyst at my organization, please do take those commuter surveys. We're really trying to capture as many riders as we can with that. Any questions?
We have one from Facebook Live. What is the last bus back from downtown? I think it's here. Did you say 11?
Yep, so all of the buses leave the last trip, leave the DTC at 11. I think the only exception to that is the Pine Street Route 5, because those buses, late night service southbound on Pine Street, it's just buses dead heading back. So that can be I think the last one's at 11:30, but I don't know off the top of my head.
I have a question, and I'm not sure if you're the person to address this or not, so feel free to comment that. I hear a lot of people talk about frustrations that there isn't more service in the new North End. And can you share with us a little bit about what the boundaries are or what the barriers are to getting more service out here?
So there's two main things that go into if you have transit service or not. The first is local interest. Is there demonstrated local interest? Your town has to pay 20% to leverage 80% federal funding. And transit is expensive. But if you feel strongly that you want your region to have more transit, talk to your select board member, reach out to your elected officials, start that conversation. That's a big way that roots happen, is that there's that political pressure. The other way is the FTA, the Federal Transit Authority, has metrics that we need to meet for productivity. Because they don't want to throw their 80% away. So we need to look at, is this route feasible? Is there enough demand for this route to be feasible? That involves a lot of studies and data crunching, but it is, again, very much the combination of those two things.
So just to be clear, because I know nothing about this, 80%, when you say 80% federal funding, does that mean the federal government actually basically is paying for and helping subsidize the public transit?
Correct. I'm sure not in all cases, but in Vermont, yes.
Okay, so it's not just the fares that pay for it, it's actually like grants or whatever.
Yeah, so fare capture is actually relatively high system-wide in Chittenden County. I'm going to make up a number, probably around 15%, I'd say. In rural areas, it might be more like 3%. Fare capture is certainly, it's that ask. It's definitely that ask that you contribute to the system that you're using. It's not a main funding source.
Got it, okay.
I have two questions there. One comment, number one, as far as all the new changes, and I think we've done a really good job bridging out with these new routes and getting out into the, some of the Rollston and Essex and stuff, but with all these changes, and they look like, there's significant changes as far as information, right? It's a big change. You're going to red lines, and now it sounds like we're in Boston, right? Have we addressed language barrier issues and how we're going to get to the communities that are going to be able to understand these changes, that depend on this for their jobs? And this is going to be confusing, I think, for them at first, like for anybody else, but doubly confusing for the communities that do have the language barriers. And I hope you guys have come up with a strategy to kind of educate everybody on how we're going to do that. So you can, and two, the thing I hear a lot about, same thing in the New North End, I don't want to get into that particular issue tonight in neighborhoods, but I do hear a lot of complaints from people that live out here that either work in Williston at all the box stores or South Burlington, and they get out of work at 10 o'clock, and they're saying they can't get to the New North End after work. Is that a fair statement? If you're working at 10 o'clock at night in Williston or South Burlington, the chances of you getting back home to the New North End are not good by bus?
I'd have to pull out the bus mapping guide and kind of go through it, which we're very happy to do. So a big part of our outreach was we had a tabling at the DTC. We were just literally sitting at the DTC, helping people wayfind through the new system. We also have a program called Bus Buddies, which is if you're interested but not quite sure how to use the transit system, you can reach out to us and we'll match you with a volunteer that will help you figure out, literally go with you on the bus, so that it can be very intimidating. The first time I rode public transit was after I had moved to a big city for grad school, and I grew up in Vermont. Very scary. How do I use the fare box? How do I talk to the bus driver about where I need to go? So I understand that there are a lot of barriers of introduction to transit use, and so the Bus Buddy program is a good program that we have. And again, we are so willing to help you wayfind in any way that we can. And if you guys have any suggestions for communities that you want us to reach out to, we'd be thrilled to do this sort of presentation or a more informal tabling event.
Yeah, is there any way to find out how Burlington's routes connect with, say, the routes to Montpelier or Middlebury? Is there any formal connection between them at all?
Yeah, so we We co-operate a route to Middlebury with Actor. We run the Montpelier link out to Montpelier. But I think more broadly speaking, to your point, the Vermont Agency of Transportation has launched an app called Go Vermont. And they're actually, the state bought this app that we now have called Transit. And so they're trying to make all of Vermont systems complementary. So I go to one place and I type in, it knows where I am, I type in where I'm going, and it's gonna say, take the GMT bus here, catch the RCT bus and take it down to here.
So we have about 30 seconds left. Did you want to have any closing comments?
I think we have a couple, if we want to take one more question?
We really need to, to respect the time of the other folks who are coming to present, but I appreciate your enthusiasm for that.
So just one more big push, if you have any feedback, please do email us, take the commuter survey, and I will just say, if you want transit in your community, ride the bus. Be loud and active in every way that you can,
It takes
ride
too
the
long
bus.
to get to the bus. It only runs up Route 7. It takes too long to get to the bus. You guys have done studies where it takes to get from Route 7 to somebody's house.
So
It takes too
we
long.
just want to remember that we want to be respectful of people's time and that we're going to move on to the next thing. Everyone, if you have something, I'm sure our presenters are happy to speak to you out in the hallway or after the meeting. And so, next we have is it Miss Mary Danko? Wait, are you next?
Yes.
Yes, Mary Danko. Mary Danko from the library is going to give us a presentation. Actually, I should have just left that out. Do you want to hold it or do you want to sit?
I can hold it. Hello, everybody. I'm Mary Danko, and I am the library director at the Fletcher Free Library. And I am here tonight to ask you if you would fill out a survey. We have been working on our strategic plan. Before I started in 2017, around 2016, the library went to all the different NPAs. Maybe you were at the one that they came to. They had stakeholder meetings, interviews, and they came up with a strategic plan. And we're working our way through it, but we're at a point where we want to kind of look at it again and get input. So we're hoping that you will fill out a survey. I brought some paper surveys with me today, but I'm hoping we can put the link on the minutes as well.
You're looking at the wrong person. I don't know.
I'm on it.
Okay,
yes.
thank you. Because if you do it online, that's even easier for us because it goes digitally all into a spreadsheet. And that's really all I have, and I wanted to open it up to questions because it's better for me to find out from you what maybe you want to know, if anybody has any questions.
I've noticed that you have a lot of great new programming at the library, so congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And so what are you surveying?
We are trying to survey what you think of the library, what you like what we're doing, and maybe what you would like to see. So I'm really glad that you noticed that we're doing that because that was one of the things that this strategic plan said is please increase your programming. One of the things you may not see as much is we do a lot of outreach. So we do come to all the senior centers in the area. I'm trying to think of the ones we come out this way. We come to Thayer House, we come to Heineberg, we actually do a book discussion there, we come to Birchwood. We are coming now to different daycares and doing literacy story times there. So we're trying to do a lot more outreach as well. Any other questions?
Are you doing the summer kids program?
Yes, so this is a big time of year for libraries because we really try and engage students over the summer.
Mary, can you speak a little closer?
Sorry, perfect, thank you. Summer is a big time for our library because, okay, does that sound better?
Makes me uncomfortably close to the
microphone. How about that?
Get much
Okay.
There you go.
Does feel a little awkward, but I guess I can get it. Summer is a big time for us at the library. We really try and engage students during the summer. I don't know if you've ever heard of the term summer slide. Oftentimes, if kids aren't engaged in any kind of reading or learning, they can really have a big setback. So we try and make it a lot of fun. So, and we've actually expanded. It's not just about summer reading anymore. You may have encountered a child in your lifetime who says, I hate to read, and And maybe it's because they have a particular learning challenge. So we don't call it summer reading, or we call it summer challenge. And so we have different activities that the kids can do. They can do some reading, but there might be some little math activities or some outdoor nature activities. And as they do that and fill in their chart, they can enter a raffle to win. This year, we have a bike that they can win. We also have it for our teens, and this year we have it for adults too. So we're just rolling out an adult summer reading program, and no, we don't monitor what you read. You can read any kind of beach read that you want, and if you come into the library, you can fill out a little raffle ticket and you'll get entered into a raffle for a weekly reading. Yes?
Question? Thank you. I read recently somewhere that you're depending on volunteers to shelve the books. How is that working for you?
It's working out great. I just actually left a volunteer tonight when I came over. If you love books, it's like being a kid in a candy store. And we don't monitor how many you shelve, so sometimes people get lost in the shelves and they're reading the books, and that's wonderful. So we find it's a win-win. Oftentimes when people volunteer, they leave with a stack of books because you just serendipitously find something that you might not have seen before. So it's a great program, and we actually have it for our teens as well. So if you're a teen and you want some volunteer experience, you can volunteer at the young adult department.
Now, how much training do you tend to give the volunteers to do that?
We do give them training. We don't ask them to sing their ABCs, but we do give them a lot of training. And sometimes what we'll do is when people first shelve books, we'll have them tip them this way so we can go back and check. And it's just I'm trying to remember how many items. We have over 100,000 items on our shelves. And so what we pride ourselves is if somebody asks for a book, we want to be able to laser in and get that book. So it is important that they're in the right place. So we work with folks to make sure that happens, because if we can't find a book, we don't sleep well at night.
We have another Facebook question from Linda. Can she explain some of the unusual items that can be borrowed from the library?
Oh, yes, of course. So this is a newer thing for us. It's called the Library of Non-Traditional Things. I would say, for a long time, we've had tools. We were actually one of the first libraries to do this type of collection. So we've got shovels, post hole diggers, rakes, and tennis rackets. And then recently, we've added all kinds of different things. One of our more popular ones has been ukuleles. So say if you're not sure you want to buy a ukulele, or we've got some drums, you might want to try it first. We have a metal detector. Maybe your relative's coming and you want to go down to the beach and see if you can get things. We have a lot of games. We have giant games. We have a giant Connect 4. We have a giant Jenga. We have a pasta maker. We have a yarn winder. And we would love your suggestions. So we think that this is a very, the library has that infrastructure for loaning things out. So why buy something that you're just going to buy once and have in your garage? Let's all share it as a community. So if you think of something that you think we should have in the library, we would love to get it.
I love that.
Great idea.
Yeah, that is awesome. Good question,
Yeah.
too.
And stuff.
Yes. Yes.
Any other questions?
You said that you're in the process of building the next strategic plan. Can you give us any previews of the direction the library is hoping to head?
I think this survey is kind of brief. We've got one more year left. So we're kind of looking to see that we're still on the right track. I don't really have any good ideas yet. I'm kind of holding off until I get all the surveys. We've had a really good response so far. You're the last NPA that I'm visiting, so I hope you can bring it home with a lot of good survey responses. So I'm trying to keep it open-minded, but we've been hearing a lot of good feedback, and we just want to be open.
Thanks. So here in the back row, we don't hear very well. Did you say taking donations of that sort of stuff? I have grain scale I want to get rid of, so.
You have what?
Grain scale.
A grain scale?
Never mind.
Oh.
But are you taking donations of things that people might?
For the non-traditional things, check with us.
Yeah.
We would definitely entertain that idea.
It's not like a pony or anything.
Okay.
Why not?
But I will make a plug, we always take book donations. So many of you know that we have the Friends of the Fletcher Free Library, which is our 501c3 supporting agency to the library. And they do a ton of work. I think last year they probably supported us with over $60,000. And a lot of the money that they make is through their book sales that happen 2 or 3 times a year. But we also have stall sales, which are right across from the circulation desk. So we're always selling books there.
One more online. Is there any online survey we can utilize?
Yes, it should be right when you go to our website. There's a banner at the very top and it says, please take our survey. If you click on that.
I put the link in the minutes.
And the link is in the minutes as well.
Awesome.
Anything else?
Going once.
Is there ever any plans for satellite libraries on the south end or the new north end?
So that's a really good question. It's tough because I think, we also get it from the south end as well. And if we did that, it would mean reallocating resources, which would mean some sort of stretch. So it's something that we're always thinking about. It would be great if somebody in their will left us $1 million. That would make it really easy. So it's something that we think about. I think the other thing that we think about is we have such a beautiful library. I think the Carnegie Library that we have here in Burlington is one of the most beautiful buildings in the state. And as well as the addition. So we want to continue to make it a real destination place so that folks want to come there and really experience that whole library because the collection is amazing too. As you might imagine, we are the biggest library in the state of Vermont, and we have over 240,000 visitors a year. We're the busiest library in the state of Vermont as well.
Going twice. All right, thank you very much, Mary.
Thank you so much. And our last presentation of the evening, Mr. Tom Fleury, and he is from the food shop.
Good evening, everyone. I'm used to standing behind this table, monitoring the election process for Ward 7 as ward clerk. It's nice to be able to do that with a microphone in my hand. Hopefully I won't take all of the extra 4 minutes, but feel free to stop me when the time is. Anyway, I'm Tom Fleury, and the hat that I'm wearing tonight is that of coordinator of the North End Food Pantry. Like many other good things, the pantry began through a deceptive practice on my part, which was another hat I once wore was principal of C.P. Smith School right behind us. And we've noticed that there was a lot of food insecurity among our families during vacation time, during the weekends, etc. So we started distributing food to our families to protect their dignity in knapsacks and other areas, so it was quietly and discreetly going home to families that needed it, especially during long breaks from school. And then I thought that the North End would need something more than simply doing that on an informal basis at one school. So I talked to Hannaford's and asked them if they might be able to make some donations, and they said, well, are you a 501c3? And I said, no. I thought I should be honest. And then I said, well, look, we can't give to you. We'd love to, but we need to make sure it goes to a 501c3. And I thought, well, actually, schools are nonprofit. How about you donate to C.P. Smith School? I hope Hannaford's isn't watching tonight. Anyway. No, we're legit now. I hope. Anyway, so I said, how about if you donate to C.P. Smith School, and C.P. Smith turns and donates to the North End Food Pantry? And they said, oh, okay, we don't care as long as it just goes down our form that it goes to a legit nonprofit. I said, okay. So the first donations actually came through me sort of finagling them through C.P. Smith and then donating them to the North End Food Pantry. Since then, Hannaford's has been very, very generous with lots of perishable foods, very good quality foods, baked goods, produce, vegetables, meat products, a lot of things that families would struggle to buy on their own, especially fruit and vegetables. And Hannaford's has been most generous. So we've actually expanded over the 6 years that we've been open from Saturdays for 1 hour. Now we're open from 9 to 11 on Saturdays as well as 9 to 11 on Sundays. And Hannaford's literally gives us a truckload each day, each Saturday and each Sunday. We're very grateful. Other people have donated money, canned goods. There have been a number of religious congregations that have brought in donations, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, all sorts of things. People, I was sitting at church on Good Friday at St. Mark's, and a man walked up behind me very slowly, and I thought he was going to ask me to leave. And he actually put a $20 bill in my hand and whispered, "That's for the pantry." And I thought, hey, maybe I should come here more often. Anyway, people walk up and make donations. They drop off of food, lots of things. And we have not only low overhead, we have no overhead in terms of the fact that we are sponsored by the Oddfellows and Rebecca's organization, which is that very little nondescript building just north of Vestries Market. People often wonder what it is, and it used to be, actually it began as a church and then became at the Oddfellows and Rebecca's, which is a service organization. But like many others, their demographics are changing and their numbers are declining. So in the short term, we're pretty all set, but in the long term, I can see that we won't be probably having the Oddfellows and Rebecca's continuing to be in existence and sponsoring us, so we really will have to become our own 501c3 and perhaps find our own another house for us to hold the pantry. But in the meantime, we have lots of generous donations coming in. The letter carriers of the North End decided that they would like to contribute the donations that they pick up on that Saturday in May. I think it usually comes right before Mother's Day, when people leave out the little bags of food, that the 8 carriers of the North End decided that they want to bring it here to the North End, and that's been a huge, huge help for us the last 3 years, and really sustains us for several months, because that's all non-perishable food, and we keep it and store it and set it out as needed and have it available to people. So we are grateful for that, as well as the financial contributions that people have made that allow us to buy the things that people need that often don't get donated, such as healthcare items, dog food, cat food. People often, shampoo and things like that. So we actually purchase a lot of items with the donations that we receive. Just a little bit about the demographics of people who use the pantry and who visit us. As I get older, I become a lot less judgmental, and I notice that it seems that there is a great need among lots of different people. We have a lot of senior citizens who visit, lots of single parents, raising 2 or 3 kids. Most of them are workers who hold 2 or 3 jobs. They're just not making enough to get by with high cost of housing, et cetera. And most are right in the area, and how I know that is because they walk to the pantry, which is actually a good location to walk to from a number of either housing developments or other places. So there are people who certainly drive by and come in, and that's great. We don't ask people where they live or what their name is or what their income level is. I think that's a lot of extra work, and I think it would be a colossal waste of time, and I think it would be undermining the dignity of a lot of people who really just stop by. We really don't care if people access another pantry. If they come, they need it, and they're happy to take it. I've noticed that very few people would be, if I were to make a judgment, people who might not need it as much as other people, but people are very gracious about not taking too much of one item in order to save it for other people. So it's a very redeeming thing as far as human nature is concerned. And I'd say just about everybody who stops by probably can use it. We ask people to take not what you want, but what you need. And I would say with very few exceptions, that's certainly the case. Many times people have stopped by with donations because they have been there to access the pantry in the past, and they were new to a job and hadn't yet gotten a paycheck, and when they get that first paycheck, many times people have come back, or sometimes people have come back and made a donation and said, here, I want to kind of give back to you. In fact, one man came and volunteered, and as his way of sort of paying back, something we didn't expect, but we certainly appreciated very much. So we keep going, and keep going very strongly, thanks to the good folks of the North End and other places who donate. You know, we have seen the numbers really tick up a lot, especially during the summers when families experience a great deal of food insecurity. Again, we have many young families that come. There are a lot of grandparents that come who have responsibility for the care of their grandchildren and others. So it's a pretty widespread age group of people who access the pantry. But we do notice that in the summers our numbers go up to about 50 to 60 on Saturday and about 20 to 25 on Sundays. When we first began, it was maybe 5, 10 people on a Saturday, and we weren't even open at the first few on Sundays, but the first few people who did come when the Sundays began, it was really, really slow, but it's picking up. It's pretty much word of mouth that people find out about it from the column that we write for the Burlington community newspaper, as well as word of mouth from friends and neighbors as well. So again, we're up to about 50 people on the average on Saturdays, about 25, I'd say, on Sundays, which is a great increase over the last few years. In fact, I think it was just about a week ago that we actually hit the 10,000 mark for the last, since we've been open in March of 2013. So the need goes up, but we are fortunate with the donations that we're receiving, and when we get it, we put it out and distribute it, and if it's money, when we get it, we spend it. And again, we have no overhead. There's a few of us that volunteer each week. We've had students come by, for community service projects, for the high school or graduation challenge projects and stuff, and they've been a big help too. So, we keep going thanks to the generosity of good folks such as yourselves, and are there to meet the need of all of our neighbors for sure.
Awesome. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. We've got a few minutes for questions. We've got questions.
No question, but I'd like to make an announcement that we're going to try to do this year. We've talked about it for the last couple of years, but I really want to do it. So November on election day is a big day for the food shop, right? A lot of people come to the polls, bring a can of food, right? St. Mark's and Miller Center, we get a lot. This year happens to be an off election year, so we won't have a big November food drive, right? So I am organizing with community members and Burlington High School seniors for community service a big food drive on Halloween night here in the New North End. Oh, cool. Okay? And so we're going to get out from order front porch forum, North Avenues. We're going to ask people to leave it on their porch. We'll get a bunch of volunteers. The drop-off place will be the Miller Center. We'll supply pizza for all the high school kids. We'll make a big event out of it, and hopefully that will kind of take up some of the void that will be left for November. And it'll be a kind of a fun event for everybody to kind of participate. So be on the lookout for more information. There's no such thing as that you couldn't help. We will take all the help we can. Obviously, we think it would be a fun night, and we think it's a great way to kind of bring some life to the pantry out here and let people. There's a lot of people in the New North End who don't even know that this exists still, right? After all the hard work that Tom has done, right? It's out there. So we think this would be a great way to kind of introduce everybody to the pantry out here and let people know what's going on. So be posted. Keep in mind to be posted on some updates. But Halloween night, big food drive in the New North End for the pantry. Okay.
Thanks. That's a big help. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dave. That's a good help.
Thank you, Tom, for all the work that you've done. It's been incredible. What is a couple of items, if someone wanted to donate, what are a couple of items that you know that are really needed week after week after week?
One of the things that people just ask for, so with the money that we got donated, we just bought were diapers and wipes, shampoo, toothpaste, the health and care items. One of the things that just sort of started coming our way, sort of if you donate it, we'll give it out, or clothes are huge now. Some people have expressed some reservations about giving to the Salvation Army or Goodwill, so they said, we'd like to just bring it here. So we put it out, and people just completely take it like hotcakes kind of thing. We have done books in the past, especially kids' books, that we like to put books in the hands of kids. And we used to have a little contest, we haven't started it up this year, but we had a little contest where I say to kids, we'll, kind of like a book sale in reverse, we called it, that if, you take a kid's book, we'll give you a dime for taking the book. And then if you come back and tell us about it, we'll give you a quarter. So that's a little extrinsic incentive, to get books in kids' hands and get them to read it and come back. It also gives them something to, carry out, because a lot of kids come with their folks, and they want to carry something too. So especially if they have a book in their hand in the summertime, it probably accomplishes a lot of good academic good for them too. But the folks of the North End and other communities that have donated have been super generous. So, all I do is just put it out on the shelf, but it's you folks and others that come by every Saturday or Sunday, or donate through, the food drive in May, or the one, I think that's an excellent idea, Dave, for Halloween, and whatever, that just keeps it going. Like I said, we have no overhead, so it really is whatever we get, we put out.
I was wondering if you take donations of fresh produce from gardeners who maybe have a little extra squash or whatever lying around.
Good question.
Yeah, actually, that's a great question, because yes, we do. There are a few people who have brought some in, and we love it to get vegetables and fruits, and families love those items because they tend to be pretty expensive at the store. We don't have a quick turnaround time, but whatever we don't pass out, we drop off at a couple of places for people who bring to people who have a hard time getting out of their homes, and then the rest we compost, so nothing goes into the waste stream as far as throwing things out. And I would say the Hannaford's donations are very, very good, very eligible kinds of things. And I always remind people of the difference between the sale date and the usage date are very, very different. And the quality of the food they've given to us has been very, very good.
So I just wanted to say thank you for highlighting the stress that a lot of families face over the summer vacations. In my day job, I actually work in the anti-hunger organization, so I'd be remiss if I don't also do the quick shout out. Summer meal sites are now up and running. So I'll make sure that link goes out in the minutes as well. Thank you, Hannah. But if anyone goes to 211, or there's a bunch of other places around the site, Burlington School Food Project, which is the school food for Burlington School District, they do an awesome job of running summer meal sites, including up here. So it's really good for those families. Free food for any kid 18 and under, which is a big deal if you have it, so thank you.
So I would just quickly say I've lived out in the North End most of my life, and I would say that there have been a lot of misconceptions over the years about the North End being quote unquote wealthy, but there's a huge need right in our own backyards, and I would maintain that there always has been. It's just that there's been kind of an image created for the North End that may be true in some neighborhoods, but the need has always been great, and now it's even greater.
How do more people help you?
I'm sorry?
How do more people help you? How could they volunteer? I heard the high school students, thank you for giving those volunteer hours. How can other people?
Pretty much, if we've had some people, if I've been away and I need to go pick up the food at Hannaford's, they've done it. So we have, if people want to, just kind of be on an on-call list, it's not that labor intensive to actually pick it up at Hannaford's and bring it and stock the shelves of the canned goods that are upstairs. But mostly the help is just bringing the food or, contributing whatever, and that's been very, very steady and actually has increased a lot. So there's not a lot of work to actually do on the Saturdays and Sundays, but we do have actually a few high school students now helping out, and but it's mostly the donations, and, because the need is great and getting even greater.
Any last questions? We got about a minute. All right, awesome. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you very much.
It's elected official time, yay! What does the red light mean? Is this the same one I had the red light? It's fine. We're just gonna assume it's fine until it's not fine anymore. That's what it is. It's good. If it goes out. So I believe it's customarily, y'all get 2 or 3 minutes to share, right?
We'll say 3 minutes tonight, because there's only 3 of you, so.
3 and 3.
Yeah.
I love it.
Do we have questions? Do we have questions?
Yes, and there will be question and answer time. And we got our timer. Who wants to go first?
Oh, I got a mic in front of me.
Okay.
3 minutes is a long time. I vote for getting out of here early. On the back table, I have some cards if you want to pick one up. On the back is fill out your legislative priorities for next time. I also spent the day writing something up today, and my wife tells me that it's filled with run-on sentences, and that's the way I talk. English is not my primary language. But I'll edit it before I come to your door, which I plan to do in the summer and in the fall. Might even have somebody with me. Quickly, I have public service wise, my arm hurts, I got a boo-boo, somebody gave me my first shingles shot. Everybody should get one. I have 3 friends that got shingles recently, one on their side, one in their eye, and one someplace that you can't mention on TV. And nobody wants this stuff. Go out and get the shots. It's a great thing. We're getting a lot of pushback, I think, on the 2 bills that didn't make it to the finish line this year. And I think that's short-sighted on a lot of people's parts who are trying to make a little hay for themselves because of things that they wanted to have done and seemingly didn't get done. This was a pretty productive legislative session. I'd invite any of you to come and talk about everything that did get done. And I suppose that the 2 bills, minimum wage and paid family leave, will probably be first on the agenda next year. That, I think, is... one question I have is, I do a lot of my stuff on Facebook, and I don't know if a lot of people use Facebook. So talk to me about that if you are not seeing the stuff that we're putting out. Ta-da.
So I'm Carol Woody, and with Bob, we represent District 6-1, which is the far north end.
Okay, hold on, I'm going to stop you. Remember, everybody, get uncomfortably close to the microphone when you're speaking.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about clean water funding. So my committee worked on my committee, the House Natural Resources, Fish and Wildlife Committee, worked on the bill S-96 that passed, and then the governor signed into law last week. And it is all about how clean water funding would be distributed in the state. And it is at least 20% of all clean water funding is going to be going to all watersheds throughout the state, up to $5 million in all 14 counties. And the new revenue that we added this year was the new funding source is an increase in the rooms and meals tax, and that is combined with the dedicated clean water fund revenue, which is escheats on unclaimed bottle deposits and a percentage of the property transfer tax. So together, that funding will reach $12 million yearly beginning in 2021. We're already collecting the funding, but by 2021, those 3 funds will be $12 million yearly. And clean water funding restores our natural environment. It makes wildlife and plants thrive, and Vermonters will be healthier. It protects our brand, made in Vermont. When you see that, you'll be more likely to pay the premium for those products. And it draws tourists to our state. It provides jobs to those who are cleaning up the waters, so that the streams, rivers, and lakes are drinkable, swimmable, and fishable. And it accomplishes that, as I said, throughout the state. And this funding additional source comes closer to fulfilling the commitments Vermont made to the EPA, authorized by Act 64, which is the Clean Water Act, to clean up Lakes Champlain and Lake men for makeup. So, Vermonters have made significant investments over time to clean our waters and to protect them from aquatic invasive species, to increase public access, particularly in southern Vermont, and to build state agency capacity both to implement new clean up policies and to help farmers meet required agricultural practices. And we in our city just passed the water bond last year, so we would stop the overflow of water. So it employs, water cleanup funds employs Vermonter and cleans up our waters, and my time's up. So that was a big success for us in this session.
Hi, Paul. Don't start the clock. Can't turn it on. Hello? I just want to say it's really cool to be here and to see these new Brazilians and to see Erica holding a microphone and the other new steering committee members. It's really nice and refreshing. I apologize for being late. We were at a joint city council school board meeting, as well as Mr. Dang and Mr. Wright were there as well, so I got to make it. Since we last spoke, I'll start off by saying, Bob and I still try to meet with folks second and fourth Saturdays, about 8 to 10, depending on how many people we get. So if you ever hear, my point is, if you ever hear anybody talk about a city issue or an issue that they want the legislature to handle, you can tell them to come to the bagel every second and fourth. And we're there. We have some lively discussions. But since I last saw you guys.
Sorry, Brenda, what time?
8 to 10.
Thank you.
So we did give the NPAs the full amount, the bagel cafe.
Thank you.
We give the NPAs the full amount of money that was asked for. We passed the budget, obviously, in order to do that. That's a big step in the right direction, I think, to do a lot of the things that we all have been hearing you guys want to do. So we fully support that. There's been a lot of agenda items related to the police department, as you've seen probably in the media. One of the things that since we did was establish a social committee, which is pretty broad group of folks that are going to come up with reforms looking at accountability, overview, top down, and then subsequent to that, I wrote my first resolution about adding social workers, and so they're going to look at that as well. To the police department so that they can actually respond to calls with the police officers. In addition to that, there was a resolution passed to have UVM reporting regularly about increasing housing for students so that we can get more students. The idea is to get them on UVM's campus and away, and with the goal of hopefully moving them out of the apartments that they're currently in, the neighborhoods, and providing more housing for people that aren't students. Bob mentioned the hole in the ground, so I felt like I should touch base. I did meet with Brookfield, I'll be quick. Recently, I think that long and short of it is that they're still looking at the bidding process and crunching numbers. And they're going to do an update before the city council soon. That'll probably give us more concrete information, but it sounds like they really just don't have the numbers. They don't have a start date, and that is their update. It is a $225 million project, and there are some unexpected delays, I think, because of the way the management of the project changed in January. But the new people seem very, very dedicated to make the project work financially. And they're considering all options, condos, senior housing, so whatever that can make the project work, they really want to build that project. Time's up.
Okay, we are now opening it up for questions. Did I lose my microphone, people?
This one's good.
No. Okay, I know I'm not allowed to give away my microphone, so I can keep you people under control. You guys will have to share one for a second till we can get the battery changed.
Can I
I'm
just
gonna
give
put
you
you in charge.
one more update, because I know people might ask.
Yeah.
Crosswalks committed by school, starting of school. So you see the posts are up, the cutouts are done. There's Mr. Dang. He, actually it was Mr. Dang who inquired about this, but there was a delay in ordering the parts of the crosswalk, but they're committed to being there before school starts.
Thank you. Thank you, Franklin.
All along North Avenue, or just at the school?
Where they already have the installations cut in.
Yeah, all 5 of them.
Who can I get to volunteer to run the microphone? Can you do it? Can you put this battery in and then that would be ideal. Okay. Who's got questions? Other than me, we're gonna let everybody else go first because I have questions.
Thank you. I don't know if this has come to city council or not, but I'm really interested in the zoning process for accessory dwelling units. And I know that there was a study done, it was presented, I believe, to CETO. Is there someone from CETO still? Do you know anything about a presentation that was given to CETO about the accessory dwelling units?
CETO gave a presentation about the ADUs at the Housing Summit. And CETO gave a presentation about accessory dwelling units. Ian Jacobs did it, and I have the notes from it if you're interested. There should also be some literature available online about it.
So at some point, is there going to be needing to be zoning changes or design review changes?
Are you talking about like tiny houses?
No.
Adding a house, either in the basement or the top of your house or on your property.
No, and it could be completely separate. I mean, there's different, I'll make it personal. I have a home in the new North End.
Okay, hold on. We really need to make sure we're on mics when we're talking, so everybody can hear.
So this is just a personal story. I have a home in the North End. My daughter would like to buy my house at some point, but she'd like to build me a smaller home in the backyard so she can always keep an eye on it. But it's a great way to free up housing in Burlington, which is desperately needed, and it's a really good way for older people to stay in their community and still be part of the family in which they've always been. But there's a lot of restrictions on that, which I understand and I get that. But right now, the restrictions would prohibit me from doing that, from building in my backyard.
I can give you a kind of answer, but I want to wait for the mic.
Thank you.
So the Housing Summit was to kind of look at what people had to say about the ADUs, or at least that section of it was, and people could give feedback like that. And a lot of the feedback was that zoning changes are needed because the laws are pretty strict. So I think that's sort of like the first step of that process. I think changes could come based on the outcome.
So at some point, will it go to city council?
I could not tell you that.
You don't know that.
So-
I can, but I'd like the city councilors here to be on the lookout for that, because I think it's a way for us to get more housing in Burlington, to take care of the need for people staying in the community, and I'll get to stay in my backyard.
I mean, it is an issue that we're really, really aware of. I did ask the CEO of Housing, Jillian, about that. And my understanding is the next step is to take everything from the summit, all the public input that they got, and to sort of formulate what the next step is. I was surprised that there wasn't, there are some people who are concerned, but I would say most counselors are actually in support of that.
I think the counselors are in support of that. I get that there's issues that people in residential areas might have some issues with. But the thing is, it's a good way it's a home sharing program, but you get to have your own space.
I attended the Housing Summit, and the whole idea was to open up for comment, and then that's just the beginning. So now, I'm glad you're asking the question, and I'm sure there are ways for you to to give input where it's the city's at the very beginning.
And I had a meeting recently with Bill Ward to talk to him about it, because I'm struggling with some zoning issues with my own home as well. Ultimately, it will go to city council, because the rules and regulations are put in place by city council, just like any other sort of legislative body. They decide what the rules are. So I believe what Bill said, because I asked him, I said, why should I not get every one of my neighbors down here like protesting over some of these ridiculous fees and rules and stuff? And he said, just give us some time. You know, we just voted to combine the departments, make rules. We're going to start, you know, we're doing this stuff and we have to kind of figure it out. And I said, I will give you 6 months and then I'm calling you back. But ultimately, to your question, yes, the city council will be voting on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, just quickly, I think what my main focus and intent here was that this is an issue, and I'm looking to city councilors to, when they see it coming across, to really take a good look at it.
Can I add something?
You can if you turn the microphone on.
Can you hear me?
Yes, speak very closely to the microphone.
So I think before even the housing summit, this issue came to the council, and it was spearheaded by a woman named Kimberly Dunn.
Kirby Dunn.
Kirby Dunn, exactly, thank you. She came to us maybe 6 months before even this, before the housing summit. And it sounded like she was waiting for a grant. She applied for a grant through the state of Vermont. Were you together? No?
She got the grant.
She got the grant. You know, you see, you have even more information than you do. But what I'm glad that the mayor did include that aspect in the housing summit. So, and overall, after the presentation, it received way great support from the council. And rest reassured, because I want to bring my dad, and I know my friend right here would want to get his dad outside next to him, right? Yeah. So it's beneficial, not only about just getting the elders, you know, next to doors, but also about climate change. Instead of building a house over there, how about we just add it? But I think what she was presenting about was very specific, attaching a building into an existing building, but not creating another building within the same property. You know, but I think Kimberly don't need to come here to the council and make the same presentation if it's possible for steering committee members.
I would actually like to have our state legislators address this as well, because I thought that it was just the city rules that were overly burdensome, but what Bill informed me of is actually most of the regulations about lot size, I mean, other than like, we're in a low residential, low density residential, blah, 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 whatever. A lot of the regulations actually come down from the state. So like Act 250 and those other things are really the basis, and that Burlington doesn't actually, that the more burdensome rules are actually from the state. That was what that's what I understand.
I don't think so on your individual property. When you get into talking about development, then Act 250 kicks in over a certain area of use, over a certain.
I know, you really have to like make out.
Use kicks in. But for individual lots, like what Gail was talking about, putting something in her backyard, it's not an Act 250 concern. I don't think.
Well, I just used Act 250 as an example, but he said that most of the regulations come down from the state.
In an incorporated area like the city of Burlington, which has its own charter system and its own, basically, our system of government basically says the legislature holds all power except for the power that it deems to municipalities. And in Burlington's charter, a lot of power is deemed. I don't think that's an issue here.
Okay, so you would say that the majority of things that need to be changed and addressed are at the city level and not at the state level?
I would agree with that.
Yeah, that's where zoning is.
Maybe the state and the city we can put in the same room. Because this isn't.
He said, and she said. Further to that point, is there anything that the state legislature is doing currently to try to increase housing stock so that we don't have the supply and demand issue and kind of help out with that stuff?
Yes, the part of the funding for the property transfer tax goes to affordable housing and has for years. And something that we are doing that is to improve housing stock is to look at building codes throughout the state. Burlington does a super job with its code enforcement here and being sure that rental units are safe and so forth, but that isn't true in the rest of the state. And the committee that I'm on, which deals with natural resources, is looking at strict building codes as people build new houses so that they are energy efficient and so that renters and people who live in the houses can be sure of what their energy and electric costs are, and that way they are sure over time of how much they have to expend on housing. And the hope is that they would expend less on those costs which are bound to increase, and to spend a little bit more on the housing itself as they build it.
So no deregulation, just taxes and more regulation is that's what I heard you say.
Well, here's an interesting story. I met with a developer who, when he was turning a floor, 20 units of housing, he was building 20 units of housing in Essex on top of some commercial space. And he was very upset that he had to meet stretch building codes. And his architect was very upset. And he went through the process of building those 20 units, and it cost him a little bit more to build those units. But he also pays all the heat for those units. And each unit has its own thermostat. And the biggest bill he had this past year was in January, and it was for something like $500 for 20 units. And he said he was, well, of course, they are on top of another heated floor of commercial space, and they have solar on the top, and because of the way it's insulated, the windows, the solar on the top, and everything else that's gone into the building, the stricter building codes, he is absolutely thrilled that he had to follow those instructions now, because it's good for the tenants and it's good for him. And it's good for the environment.
And they're affordable units for regular
Actually,
people?
they are. Yeah.
Okay. Did you have your hand up?
Solution
Okay.
to Gail's problem though is build yourself one of those tiny houses, back it into your garage, put the door down, throw away the key.
No, I want it to be great.
Since we're talking about housing, I'm curious if the counselors can speak to like what the value is of having low-density residential zoning in Burlington at all.
At this point.
What are the benefits?
Remember, microphone.
You know, low-density neighborhood is definitely contributing to the quality of life, because there are less housing, there are less businesses. But I think what we need to focus on is to make sure that our neighborhoods are vibrant. You know, in some cases, our neighborhoods are beautiful and welcoming. And I am not opposed to making sure that, you know, part of the city to include like densities that are a little bit higher. But here in the New North End, compared to, for example, the South End, anything that we add will not contribute to the quality of life or what makes our part of town special. And I think the city has been working proactively to change zoning, to change codes in allowing businesses, in allowing, you know, dancing clubs, in allowing, you know, many different things. But I think they are specific in some places. But the quality of life we have here, I think personally, I would want to keep it that way. And there are also other benefits, you know, in making sure that people don't transform the feel of an environment, for example, on your street, how it feels like all the buildings have almost the same height. I don't want to also see developers to come and try to change it, try to transform it. But there are existing neighborhoods where I think there are opportunities for zoning to be able to be changed in order for us to kind of build more up. And I think specifically in Ward 1 and Ward 8, you know, because it's very close to our educational institutions. But Ward 4, Ward 7, I definitely would want to keep it like low density, where people can breathe the air and just get to know each other and those types of things.
I did think of another example of something the state did out here in the New North End. The DMV, you know where that is now. They sold extra land around the DMV for $1. And that's the land that the housing is built on over at the shopping center.
The ones that are $1,500 for a one bedroom? Are those the apartments that you're talking about?
Yeah, I don't know how much.
That's how much they are.
Not all of them.
The ones that are listed currently for available are $1,500 for a one bedroom.
The state did sell the land for $1 so that it would make it possible to have that development right at the shopping center. The idea that people wouldn't need a car and that they could, you know.
Well, assuming they can afford that kind of rent, which most people, normal people can't, I'm not sure that that was super helpful. And so that's what I think the concern is that energy is being put into building structures that aren't actually helpful for the people who live here and for the people who need it. They're very high-end, high-cost apartments that regular folks making regular wages cannot afford. And so it's great to say that, well, there's a building going up on Patchen Road, but if it's $2,000 for a 2-bedroom, that's not good housing stock. That's more stock for people who don't need the help. So that's the frustration, is that focus is being put in areas that don't actually benefit Burlington residents, unfortunately.
So I think your question is just a great and wonderful question, and I think it is imperative, for example, to be, for us, when we come together, or at least that we can be productive and kind of move forward. I think the question is great, all the questions are great, but let's facilitate it in a way that we allow people who need to respond effectively, and if you have follow-up questions, we can. So that just we be mindful of our time being here. Just wanted to add that. Thank you.
So does anyone have another question that is not related to housing?
Well, can I add just to Ron's
of course.
concern? So the pushback, I think, is around parking. You know, if you add an accessory dwelling in, does it require you to then build a parking spot on that land? What's going to happen if you park on the street? So with that concern comes traffic. Obviously, Ali talked about the quality of life issues. You know, you buy a house, 30-year mortgage, into a quiet neighborhood, and then now everybody's adding a unit on top of them. Pop-up Airbnbs, big concern, right? Everybody starts renting. So there's how to do it responsibly, you know, how to create the vibrancy of North Ave, I think should be our goal. How can we make North Ave more vibrant? How can we not make it look like this Pine Street, but, you know, bring a couple really nice restaurants and they'll walk up the Hannaford Plaza. Not be, so anyway, that's the pushback I think people are concerned
about. For terrific city councilors. What are some goals for the New North End for the coming year? New budget? What are some things that maybe we can expect, or some things that you guys want to accomplish that'll impact the New North End?
I mean, I think we definitely, personally, I think, you know, the representation that we receive, that we are providing for our constituency is incredible. And I think sometimes people really miss understand the role of a city councilor. And to me, the role of the city councilor is nothing other than making sure that the concerns of your constituents are being met and also are being addressed. And I think, one of them was these new North and all the NPAs, specifically ours. We worked on a couple of initiatives in making sure that we get the funding. And I think, that conversation led to now all the NPAs will receive that funding. And I think for the first time, the new North End, especially North Avenue, has never been put into BTV, thinking about the BTV, that we now we have our own BTV code enforcement, that now North Avenue, like what you say, currently zoning will be changed to allow businesses to come in, and I think that did not exist before. And in terms of also our representation is also, we are a neighborhood ward. It's there are more people who live here. And I think our push was more, how do we be more mindful to people who are paying taxes here. And I think that, the mayor did tell us the taxes won't go up, but unfortunately we will see at least a little bit, which I voted against. And I think if you look, just drive around, especially in Ward 7, which I do most of the time, I just drive around, see the condition of our streets, see the condition of our sidewalks, and also in making sure that those, we work directly without a resolution with the appropriate departments to come look at it and fix it. So one example, James Avenue is doing great. Your street is doing wonderful. Eaton Allen Parkway is doing great. And I think at the same time, there are also all the projects, all the needs that are here that the city and the city departments are working on. But in terms of like big picture things, I think we just been there and advocating for what we really need. Now, if people step up and say what we want is to have a pool, then we will get together and make sure we will have a pool next time. There was some talks around having a library, here. But with the time also, we did find out that including a library with the new Burlington High School won't be a good idea. And I think from the library perspective, they want people to come for more circulation at the Fletcher Field, and I think they get in there. But what are all the things that really people here do need? And I think one of them is transportation. And soon, not from us, but soon you will be receiving a presentation from GMT.
We had it today.
They already did. I think all of those are happening because there are people who are keeping eye of what the neighborhoods need and pushing directly to get this.
Franklin?
So I mean, I'm not going to take any credit for it, but about the community dinners that is being organized by the neighborhood group in the North End. I think it's called the Community Dinner Group. So that'll pick back up after Letty Bite stops in the summer. The Burlington Wildways is going to do a trail from all the way to the Winooski Valley Park District to down through Ethan Allen Park. They're going to label it. That's going to be in September. I think that's pretty exciting. That'll bring, the goal I think is to try, the long-term goal of the Burlington Wildways is to connect all these scattered outdoorsy areas that Burlington has, and so to label them clearly, and so that in the future, if you're at the airport and you come to Burlington, you'll get this map. But the first trail they're doing is right here to the North End, including the Intervale, and hopefully is to bring more traffic to the Intervale and vice versa. And that's really exciting. They're a nonprofit group. I'm looking to get more involved with them. I know you guys have seen that Parks is trying to do the Arms Forest public input process to figure out what they can do with that. There's the Letty Park renovation, possible pump track. I don't think any of those will be in the next year, but other than that, I think that Camper Rise is still in our area, and that's changing. I hear a lot of different things that there's still some projects in there that could be pretty exciting for us. For example, a more local food-based grocery store was an option I heard, and then office buildings, that could be something that would attract a different market from 9 to 5 businesses, catering to that. So that's still an option. Other than that, I think that my goal in the next year is to keep bringing resolutions that I feel the community supports. So that's why I'm always like talking to people. And the ADUs is a great idea. And I'd love to see that come to fruition the next year. The accessory dwelling units. So that's something that I'm sure it's on everybody's mind.
Thank you. Okay,
Can I
we've
add
got-
one more thing?
Well, you had a few minutes to share your goals and your hopes for the future. So in our last 5 minutes, I just want to make sure that everyone's questioned, if they have one, that they have the opportunity to ask it. And if we don't have another question and you want to continue to share on that, then we can do that.
Okay, no problem.
Does
More
anyone have
questions?
any further questions, especially our state legislators? We've been pummeling our city councilors with questions.
Now let's hear what we have to say.
All right.
Thank you. So I think, one important aspect also is safety in the New York. We're lucky enough that we don't have a lot of crimes happening because we saw it. And I think when we talk about safety, let's not forget the importance of having our own ambulance here. And I think all of those are not things that just come to life. I think there were a lot of compromising, a lot of pushing, and a lot of advocacy. And finally, we will be putting that on the ballot item for the city to have a new ambulance and we will be housed here. I think that's an important thing that we need to talk about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I follow up? I do think that that's something that, it's going to cost $600,000. It takes 6 people to staff the ambulance. That's 6 union positions. And so it's going to be on the 2020 ballot item as a result of the union contract firefighters. And that's something that in my opinion, it's our job to convince everybody who doesn't live in the North End that we need it. Like if you live out here and you see the ambulances and you see how much they respond to Star Farm, you get it. But and the last thing I would just say quickly is that I think we have an opportunity of a lifetime in this VHS thing. And we just left the meeting, and starting in July, they're going to start having monthly public meetings, and they're looking for input. They meet once a week for a very long time to figure out how to build the best. What they really want to do is a high school, but they also are willing to build our neighborhood. They're considering a gym that would be open much like this one here to be used for like club sports, but a library that's open in the summer and in off hours, and possibly partnership with Fletcher Free, but a conference room that could be used for meetings. I mean, sometimes we have trouble finding a place to meet because both here. So I'm sure there'll be front porch forums about it. Just look out for it. Monthly meetings with public input from the VHS people building the high school. It'll be completed in 2024.
Bob, you've got 2 minutes.
I don't need that much. I'm excited to hear about the ambulance thing, because when the mayor first started to run, that was one of the things that I brought up to him, that the ambulance comes out here a lot. Why don't we have one out here? And we got one. It sat in the firehouse unmanned. So I got my ambulance, but nobody to run. Now I'm happy to hear that. But one of the things that I pushed was the fire company to tell me how many runs they made and how severe the cases were that they came out for. I mean, I think as we age here, heart attacks and other issues that short window of reprieve are probably more significant. I'd love to see that information.
Absolutely, and I think you brought up a great point, because last council meeting, not this one, 2 council meetings ago, we did receive a presentation from the commission, the fire station commission, and that was specifically my question. The data that they provided was just very blunt, and it was citywide, how many calls, and I requested for them to break it down, because I wanted to see what type of calls were there for, and also where do you get most of the call within the city? Is it in the south end? Is it in the central district? Or is it in the new north end? And I think to be able to tell our story better. I'm
Yeah, I
glad
always
that-
thought they had to have that information to build, so it shouldn't be that difficult to grab.
45 seconds. I have no microphone.
Just enough time to get what you got.
All right, we're done.
Thank you.
Get out of here. No, yes.
I found it in the floor of my car.
Good place for it.
At this point, it is.
Story on Bob?
At this point, it is because
Bob was got it.